Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my Marvel Comics San Diego Comic-Con 2023 announcements impressions. And I just kind of let them go over and do all their kind of days and see what kind of things kind of popped up. And there's some interesting things that I'm kind of looking forward to. We'll probably dig more into them with the certain kind of solicitations, but here's some of the kind of bigger ones. Let's see. They dug more into X-Men Blue Origins, where we're evidently getting more into Nightcrawler's kind of stuff, that there's going to be a one-shot exploring the true origins of both Mystique and Nightcrawler. This is dovetailing into his kind of uncanny Spider-Man thing, which, granted, I do like the design of Nightcrawler as Spider-Man, but it's the weirdest kind. I'm like, out of any kind of thing that we kind of learned from Marvel, announcing that one, I'm like, what? And not in a bad kind of way. It's just you know how someone's like, okay, pickles and ice cream. It's like, okay, I'm not into it, but go and do your kind of thing. This is more like, yo man, I got this idea for a snack. And it's fucking unicorn explosion and chocolate peanut butter waterfall. It's alright, kind of go for it. Sprinkles, whatever. Sugary sweetness, cotton candy, go for it. It's more just alright, they can kind of go together, but you're kind of just how did we get to this point? So that's a kind of interesting thing. We'll have to see what they kind of more do with it. And see how it kind of redefines the origins. Because you always kind of have weird kind of things that happen with the origins. Venom has definitely changed drastically with the King in Black. Now granted, I don't really have a horse in that kind of race. I understand linking it more with magic, and the Beyonders is really kind of what? But I do think it's an interesting journey for Eddie Brock, Venom, and Dylan as well. But it goes kind of nutty dude on nutty day. Kind of messing around a little bit with Thor's, with linking him up with the Phoenix, which I think that's a better kind of executed one. One of the other ones that I love that everybody just kind of fucks around with is that Tony Stark was adopted to protect another kind of son. That was just an unnecessary retcon. Not one that I vehemently hated origin-wise, but it was just we didn't need this. His origin was sealed tight and just worked together. It's trying to work around Peter Parker's origins, or even Miles Morales's from the Ultimate Universe. You try and screw with it too much, you just kind of completely fuck over the character. So we'll have to kind of see how that one kind of goes. We also got a very interesting kind of one for the Timeless one, where that one is going to look into a dystopian kind of future where we've got Power Man that's got the powers of the Hulk, Sentry, and Iron Fist are fighting the immortal Moon Knight, who's doing the bidding of Khonshu. And it's okay, and they've got Iron Man armor, shit like that, and I'm just okay. Now granted, I didn't read the last Timeless, even though it links up with what's going on with the current Avengers run that I'm reading and everything, and Kang and all that, but we'll have to see what kind of goes on with that. It's that sounds interesting. So if you're into Power Man and into the immortal Moon Knight kind of premise, take a look into it, see if it kind of interests you. We'll probably get more information as the solicitations kind of come out, so keep an eye out for that as we're going on. We've got Deadpool 7 Slaughters, which is going to have Rob Liefeld doing Deadpool, where he kills someone each day, over the course of a week. So that sounds kind of interesting. And then it's a one-shot, and it'll also include segments written by Mark Guggenheim, Colin Bunn, Gail Simone, Cody Ziegler, and Justina Ireland. It's if you're into Deadpool, definitely check that one out. That could be kind of crazy and nutty. Now we're also getting into Superior Spider-Man being brought back, which kind of leads into what we've been seeing going on with Otto acting oddly antagonistic. Well, not oddly antagonistic. I mean, he's Otto Octavius. He's Doc Ock. He does asshole things. It's just he's I'm pissed about something. And it's I cannot remember this shit. It's I kind of get it. So we'll see how this spins into what's going on here. That he's, let me see, he's going to be returning in his very ongoing series, set after the upcoming one-shot featuring the character, hit shelves in November with Dan Slott and Mark Bagley, both returning to the title. So that should be interesting. Now, depending upon if you like Dan Slott writing Spider-Man and Mark Bagley, I like Mark Bagley's art. I mean, I'm more familiar with it from the Ultimate Spider-Man. Let's see. We'll get some never-before-seen villain. Peter Parker will play a role. Well, that's good. You kind of have to do something like that. And then the biggest kind of news that we got is that we're getting a new Punisher. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of works out. David propose? Let's see if that's right. That might be wrong in the article. No, it is wrong in the article. Propose. He wrote, like, my two very favorite issues of, like, Fantastic Four. Now, granted, I liked the Fantastic Four stuff, but he just really did a really good job. So, David Propose. I'm sorry for that. I'm like, that article's wrong. Because I'm looking at one that kind of, like, has kind of, like, the biggest kind of announcements and everything. But it's interesting that we're getting a new Punisher. I have not been reading what happened when he was, like, the Hand of the Beast or something like that, all that kind of stuff. But Frank Castle pretty much ended his Punisher stuff, and now we're getting a new Punisher, which, by this writer, David Pepose, I think it'll be definitely an interesting kind of thing, because I loved what he did with the Fantastic Four, which I know people are going to be like, how do you think he'd do a good Punisher? I'm like, from what he did with the Fantastic Four, he understood the characters and wrote the story, which was essentially Die Hard of the Baxter Building, and knew how to write those characters. So I think that if he's able to understand this character and do stuff with the Punisher, he should be able to do pretty well with it. Let's see. So we've got Joe Garrison, who's going to become the Punisher, and Pepose has described him as like the Danny Ketch of the Punisher legacy, and that he's like a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. He's got a different looking Punisher insignia. Got more kind of higher tech weaponry and everything. And I think it's an interesting kind of shift. And a different kind of status quo for the Punisher, since Frank Castle's usually been the Punisher. And of course they've gone through various different kind of things. I read a run where he was using the War Machine armor. I know that there was Frankencastle, who was more into the horror kind of stuff. So changing out and doing weird kind of stuff with Frank is not out of the realm of possibility. But I am interested to see what they kind of do with this, how it kind of affects the Marvel Universe and the comics, and how this kind of works out. I'm like, alright, definitely on the radar. Hopefully that does pretty well. And if you're into the Punisher, I would definitely at least check it out. Check out the solicitation. See if you're into the art style. See if you're into the writer. Get some of his other kind of works to kind of gauge it. He's done Savage Avengers. I haven't been reading that, but I have seen stuff that's been going on with it. So, like, check out his other work and see if that's kind of in it for you. Let's see. We've also got Time to Kill and First Contact. Let's see. Rob Liefeld's doing 2 ongoing series. Time to Kill and First Contact in 2024. We don't really have any plot details about that, so we just kind of got that. And that we've also got a new X-Men. Let's see. Because they're acknowledging the fall of Krakoa, that a new lineup of X-Men may be coming, in the familiar font for this announcement of the new X group may have its ties to Apocalypse, as you can see here. It's like, alright, we'll see how that kind of goes. Even though I haven't been reading X-Men, I have been intrigued with how they've been setting up mutants and how they've been interacting within even the kind of various titles that I've been reading. Specifically, the Invincible Iron Man fighting Fei Long, and then he's going to be getting married to Emma Frost. That's going to be fucking nutty dude on nutty day. We'll see how that fucking goes all the day. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on with the fall of Krakoa, how this kind of fallout ensues, and what kind of new status quos we'll get with the X-Men, and what kind of new team lineup. Of course, we've also got the Uncanny Avengers kind of spinning out, so that's going to be a big kind of deal for what goes on, probably of why we get a new kind of X-Men lineup. We've also got a Daredevil kind of thing, Daredevil Black Armor, which will feature art from Netho Diaz and Mark Bagley. It's a mini-series that'll hit in November. Return of the Hero's Black Suit, which evidently that was controversial when it first debuted in the 90s. I did not know that Daredevil had a black suit. And that looks pretty fucking awesome. Sorry if it gets kind of like weirded out there. We've got Marvel Superhero Secret Wars Battle World. And of course, since they're taking inspirations with certain different kind of stuff, adapting more of Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars, Marvel's going back to the 1984 one with a never-before-seen adventure set during the original crossover event, which could be interesting if done and executed well. But again, you always have to watch out going back and being like, this is a thing we've never learned before, retcon-wise. Sometimes it can work, sometimes it doesn't. We'll have to see. Evidently, this will be a new miniseries releasing its first issue in November. Expose hidden truths about the crossover event, including what the Beyonders were really planning all along. Let's see. More ongoing behind the scenes of Secret Wars, enough for long-time... Let's see. Long-time fans. We're also getting a Howard the Duck, which I kind of like the picture here, with Spidey looking at him. Let's see. Upcoming one-shot of just Howard the Duck issue 1 by Chuck Zdarsky, Daniel Kibblesmith, and Merritt Kay. Let's see. Joined by a host of other artists, including Annie Wu and Joe Quinones. If I'm pronouncing anybody's names wrong, I am severely sorry. And I hate when that happens. So evidently this is Howard down on his luck, approached by an otherworldly being that offers him an opportunity to see all the different ways that his life could have gone better. So this is like a Howard the Duck-centric what if, kind of like a multiversal satire of A Christmas Carol. Interesting. And then the biggest kind of announcement was Gang War. And that's kind of spinning out of Spidey, and this was kind of like the big kind of reason why I was doing this stuff with the announcements, because I didn't see any kind of other ones. And honestly, whenever Marvel does announce certain kind of events, it's always kind of like 50-50 if it's like a rehash of a certain kind of event or kind of a different kind of take on that kind of event. You know, we had Civil War, and then we have Civil War 2. Now, granted, I didn't read Civil War 2 because that kind of got nutty as shit. And I'm like, okay, interesting kind of concept, weird-ass execution. Of course, Dark Web tying into Inferno and everything, and I'm just like, I kind of just want to read Spidey. Like, certain events kind of bring you in. I mean, Secret Empire, I at least read the kind of last issue to see what went on with that. I'm just like, you have to commit to it. And the thing is, events are kind of weird. I always look at them, and I would rather prefer that they kind of stay central to themselves. I mean, granted, you can have tie-over because of, like, this is Gang War, this is having Spidey being central to it, so it would be kind of weird and fucking strange if it didn't have anything that happens kind of in the main book. I don't mind it bleeding over to the main book, but taking over where I gotta read the event to understand what's going on in the main book is not my ideal scenario. I always prefer if it's like the event and then any kind of tie-in issue is value added to what is going on versus required reading for what's going on, because that gets way too fucking expensive in most kind of instances. Otherwise, just focus on the event and do it. Like, I focused on Civil War and got that one. Focused on Siege and Secret Invasion and got those. I'm like, alright, cool. Because I didn't have to go into the tie-ins and kind of like figure out what's kind of going on. So with this one, Gang War, this is their next kind of big thing. It depicts a massive battle between the gangs of New York. Like, all the supervillains are fighting each other. New York's going kind of nutty, and Spidey's like, fuck this shit. I'm gonna do something. So he kind of is like the general kind of one. The event will begin this November in the Amazing Spider-Man issue 37, before spinning out into other titles, finally ending in March. Holy shit, that's going to be a big old bit. So it's got a clash between crime lords like Kingpin, Hammerhead, Mr. Negative, the Owl, Hobgoblin, and many more, which sounds pretty fucking nutty. And they're going to be getting all different kind of other kind of people involved. Let me see if I can find another thing. It'll also cross over into like the Amazing Spider-Man Gang War one-shot and 3 miniseries, Luke Cage Gang War, Spider-Woman, and Deadly Hands of Kung Fu Gang War. No Shang-Chi's in there. We got She-Hulk, Miles Morales, Elektra. I think that's Elektra. Yeah. Well, Elektra, Daredevil? I don't know. Kind of looks nutty. Hold on a minute. Oh, there we go. Fucking Diamondback, AIM, Hydra. Because it doesn't, like, this is like Marvel's actual one, and granted, that looks fucking nice. And he's like General Spidey at the helm, which I love. Like, Spidey does it, well, granted, I haven't read a lot of stuff where Spidey has been kind of the leader, kind of leading kind of stuff like this, so it's kind of nice that he's kind of taken the charge, and include a group of heroes that include fellow Spider-Man, Miles Morales, She-Hulk, Daredevil, and Spider-Woman. The goal, take down the super gangs in under 48 hours, but what does Mayor Luke Cage and the city's strong anti-vigilante laws have to say about it? Well, jackpot gamble on getting involved. And is Shang-Chi a friend or foe? They better figure it all out before 2 classic villains make a game-changing return. But I would also have liked to have seen, now granted, I understand that if you're putting Spider-Man into the helm, it's kind of hard to put in Iron Man and Captain America, but granted, they're usually around there as well. But it would have been nice to have Spidey lead up and be like, hey, listen, can you big guys also help us out with this? But I think they're focusing more on street-level heroes, which I like. But if you're doing an event like this, it would have been awesome to see Spidey be like, hey, I know you guys have experience and everything, but can you let me handle this and help me out? And of course, Steve and Tony would. But let's see. There's just a lot. We've got Amazing Spider-Man 37, 38, and then The First Strike, and then Luke Cage Gang War 1 of 4, Spider-Woman 1 of 4, Miles Morales Spider-Man 12, Amazing Spider-Man 38, Miles Morales Spider-Man 13, Deadly Hands of Kung Fu Gang War issue 1 of 3. Sweet good God, that looks about as nutty doodah as what was going on with Cold War. Now, granted, Cold War was done a little bit better, where I had a one-shot in the beginning, a one-shot at the end, and we'll be getting the finale, geez, in like next month in August. So we'll see what goes on. They do have a lot of different kind of writers going on with this, and artists, which is kind of cool, but that's the kind of big event, and I kind of like it, just street-level criminal gangs, and Spidey being like, this has gotten out of hand, I want to do something about this. And he gathers his allies, and he goes to see if he can do it. I'm intrigued to see how Mayor Luke Cage handles this, and if they'll get any changes to the anti-vigilante laws or whatnot, and how that kind of works out. So, it could be interesting, but to see how scattered it is from Marvel's page itself, it would be a very big time commitment if you go into it. So, if anything, I would probably stick to just the main Spider-Man titles at this point. Like, if there was a separate event where it was like, here we go. But they might be not doing that because of what probably went on potentially with Dark Web, which, incidentally enough, I didn't go for the main event, which probably is like, hey, you should have fucking done that. But I was like, I wasn't into it. This has more of an interesting premise that looks to be done in the weirdest kind of way possible. So we'll see how that kind of works out. I'm definitely interested to see the implications for Peter, Miles, She-Hulk, all of them around there, and dealing with the vigilante kind of issues that are going to be cropping up, and just seeing how the underground criminal organizations and organized crime will look after this event as well. So those are the big kind of announcement for Marvel Comics. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below, what you're excited to see. If none of these really interest you, if you're just kind of waiting for solicitations to get more of an idea of what's going on, seeing like covers, art styles, who's going to be part of the creative teams and all that, totally get that. And I hope you have a good day.